Well, this is such a fun painting that I'm going to recreate from our favorite TV artist. Everybody will recognize this one. I'm calling it Sunshine Rays, and I'm going to teach you how to do those rays today. I'll start with the black and white, and then we'll graduate to color. And so this will be a lot of fun. Anyway, my name is Yovette, in case you haven't seen me before. I'm glad you're here today. Let's just go get started. As you can see here, I have a 16 by 20 canvas, and what I have done is I have covered it completely with a black gesso, and I have allowed it to completely dry. Now if you don't have gesso, then go ahead and use acrylic. Either one will work. Gesso works better, but whatever you have works. I have 3 sizes of foam brushes here. You can get these at the hardware store or the craft store. I'm going to be using a mid-size one because I'm using a mid-size canvas, but you can, if you're using a big canvas, use a bigger brush. Also, I have here black gesso, gray gesso, and white gesso. And if you don't have gesso, then use acrylic. That will work also. And a paper towel, which you just crumple up any old way that you can find to do it that just would make a nice little design, so you know, for pouncing. And if you don't want to use a paper towel, the sponges are great, but what you do is you dip it in water first. You get it sopping wet, and then you squeeze it out really dry. And then that is just wonderful for pouncing, especially for a bigger canvas. I really like using sponge. To begin, we're just going to take our paper towel and just start dipping it in a little bit of white. And I hope you're able to see this. I don't know if you can or not. So you've got a little bit of white on the bottom, and you're just going to start tapping. Now, I want to have my light, my biggest part of my light right here. This is my easel, and here is center. You can always tell by the little knobby on the top. So I want this to be left of center. That's all right. So anyway, start dabbing and just start in one spot, and as you come out, just go around, turn your paper towel a little bit every once in a while. Just turn it. And just keep dabbing. And soon you'll run out of paint. So dab again. Always start in center and come out. Dip into a little gray. And I just want to, I want some darkness along the edges here. Come in just a little bit here and there, just so it looks like it's going to have a little bit of foliage. There. And that should be good. So now we're going back to this plate, and what I want to do, this time I'm just going to go into black. Actually, we better turn it this way. Here we go. And I'm just loading both sides of this foam brush. And I want to start making like little tree trunks. And I want them to be in the center also, because that's where our light is. And these trees are not always straight, and they're not always stuck together, and they're not always far apart. So make them very individual. You can put these anywhere you want them. And sometimes they're even crossing over one another. And as we come out to the edges, what I want to do is then go into some gray. because we want just a little bit lighter. Is it starting to look like a forest? No, probably not. There, I just wiped a little bit of the paint off. Now I want to go into a white. This is on the very outer edges. And because these trees are going to be a little bit closer. Well, I adjusted my camera just a little bit because I was a little too close, and so now you can see it's a little bit further back. So anyway, and I didn't turn it on quite soon enough, but what I did is I just made 3 of the white trees over here. So that's basically all for the trees. I forgot to tell you that you're going to need a liner brush, taking water and dipping into your black. We want a lot of water because we want to make this watery like ink. And I just want you to make a few little smaller twigs and branches, just little things that are, just make it look like a forest. And when you're doing these, and we want to do some of these tree trunks too. When you're doing these, start in the trunk itself and push heavier and make it come out. I hope my head's not getting in the way again. I have a terrible habit of doing that. Anyways, they cross over each other. See how it starts to look really thick in here, which is what we want. For you guys who like impressionistic, or if you want to just loosen up your painting, this is the way to do it. I'll tell you, I've taught this in classes before and everybody has so much fun because it doesn't matter what you do. It's all okay. It turns out beautiful. You can think this is probably the ugliest thing that you ever saw, and it'll just, you'll be surprised. It'll turn out great. So anyway, put some black ones in here. People seem to really like this one because it's just so loose and free and you can just do anything in it. Okay, going to the white, we'll just add a few branches in here. I love these white ones. You'll see it when we finish this painting how interesting these are. I just think they'll show up better if they're lighter. And you know, it really helps too if you let these, when you're doing these, let these colors dry in between a little bit, and sometimes that really helps. Okay, what I did is I grabbed another foam brush because I'm going to go into black, and my other foam brush has white in it. That's where we left off with the trees. So just going to load both sides of the brush here with black, lots of black, because we are going to make a big old tree. Okay. Want you to start up anywhere that you like. I'm going to start over in this corner, and this time I'm pressing, and this, I want a really crooked old tree. Cool. Oh yeah, I like this big, big, massive, big old tree. And this needs to be a little bit bigger there. Okay, and a little more black. Let's have a branch coming right about here. Maybe one coming over here. How about one even going over this way? Oh, I love these big old trees. These are great. Right just in the middle. Isn't that neat? Now, if you want, you can even make branches on this tree with your small liner brush. I'm not going to do that, but if you want, you can. I'd like to have this one extending out a little bit too. Just to have something over on this side, because this tree, oh yeah, and I see another one. I see another one here. Right here. Okay, now I want to switch back to the brush that has the white on it. We're going to go into the white, and now we're going to make some foliage. And so I'm just loading both sides of the brush. And I'm going to start over here. You can start anywhere, but just lightly. All you're doing is just very lightly, just pushing, making foliage. Go into a little gray here and there. Maybe a little black. Now let's put some white over on this side. Now I'm covering the bottoms of these trees, you notice that. And see how this is the really mixing. This is why I say maybe you should wait and let these colors dry completely before you actually go start doing this part here. But the good thing is this is either gesso or acrylic, whichever you're using, and so it doesn't make any difference what you put down here because you can go over it. And if you want, you can make little plant-like things here and there. Go into a little bit of dark here and there, because you do want some shadows. And use the corner of the brush too. Don't just use just the flat. Use the corner a little bit here and there. Now I want a pathway in here also, and so I'm going to take the black and just like so. I'm going to have it come way over here. I'm going to add just a dab of gray in there also. Just have this come way out to the edge. I should be a right-hander for this. This is awfully difficult trying to stay out of the camera and try and do this at this awkward angle. It was very awkward. Anyway, that's fine. That's good. Go back into maybe a little more white right along here. Just dab up these edges a little bit. I had to get just a teensy bit more paint. I want to make this pathway just a bit more. Well, let me try this right-handed because I just can't do this left-handed. There. Okay, that's better. And I can't paint right-handed either, so I'm stuck between a rock and a hard spot here. Oh, well, that's okay. So that's done. I want some dark back here. Okay, I apologize. I had to stop the camera from rolling. I had to dry this because my colors were just blending way too much. I didn't want that much blending. So anyway, now that that's dried, I can touch it. It's not going to smear, which it was doing terribly before. So I want to go back in. I want to make some highlights here and there, and especially like in this area. And the reason is because this is where your light would be coming in. So light is coming in this way. So it would be on this side. There, that's better. And let's see, I want to lighten this just a teeny bit down here. Make it look more like a pathway. That's working much better. So don't do as I do. Go ahead and let these colors, let these dry in between, because it'll make such a difference in the finished product. Just kind of blending that out. Now I would like to take some dark and just hit right along this edge here. There. Just so my canvas is covered. And if the light is coming in and there's some foliage down here, you would see also some brightness. Let me get this turned around. You would see some brightness right in here, where the sun would strike. See, now already that's mixing and turning gray. Okay, now what you want to do is let this whole thing totally, completely dry. Just go ahead and do any touch-ups that you want. If you want to change anything before we actually put the final color on, now would be the time. So now before I quit, I'm just doing little touch-ups, little things that I want to change, just to make it look a little better. I want you to do the same thing between now and the next lesson. Okay, as you can see, I'm doing this at a different angle this time. Normally I'm standing on the other side and the camera is just reversed, but I just wanted to try this because for me it's a whole lot easier to paint from this side than it is from the other side. But we'll see how it works. So anyway, what I have here is my finished canvas with either acrylic or gesso, whichever your choice is. The paint underneath is completely 100% dry, and that's critical. It's also critical that you use only transparent colors, which I have in the link listed below. And let's see. If you don't have oil paints, then I would suggest you just try and do this in acrylic. I tried it, I didn't think it turned out as well, but yeah, whatever. And I'm going to go into phthalo blue. Now phthalo blue is a lighter blue of the two colors, and I don't want very much. Okay, so we have the phthalo blue. Let's just go ahead and start up here in the corners. And if you want a darker color, you can add more blue. And if you don't want it so dark, you just add less blue. And I'm inclined to not make it quite as dark. Just go from side to side. Come all the way down. Boy, this is wobbly. Okay, there we go. And just go right to the top of those bushes there. Isn't that a beautiful shade of blue? I just love phthalo. That phthalo blue is probably one of my favorite colors. Next, without cleaning the brush, I want to go into Prussian blue. Now, Prussian blue is still transparent, but it's a much deeper color. So, this time I'm going to go only in the corners. I just want to darken the corners. And you can make them as dark as you want. And see how by darkening the corners, look how it brings out this center light here. It makes it really pretty. Oh, I'm liking that. That is just beautiful. I like it. Just a little bit right there. Okay, and I want to set that brush aside. Now I want to go into a yellow color. So with my 1-inch brush and Indian yellow, I'm going to pull. You notice that I do not pull this way, just like pushing my whole brush, because all that does is load the ends here. You want to hold your handle up and pull. That's the best way to load the brush. Then that way it's on the tips. Now let's go into all this yellow here, all these bushes. I want to make all the bushes a yellowish color. Again, reload a little bit. You know, I had the chance just recently to look back on some of my early videos that I first made. Oh my gosh, I had to laugh. It was so funny. I was scared to death of the camera. I was scared to death of painting. Even though I've taught classes for years, there's something about a camera that's just so, I don't know, scary. So anyway, continue on with this yellow. There, that's good. Just leave it like that. What I want to do is make a color of brown. So I'm taking a little alizarin crimson and a little sap green. This makes what they call a Christmas brown. It's a beautiful shade of brown. And you can make it to the green side or you can make it to the red side, whatever your choice is. Oh, that's pretty. I like that. Now this is an Alexander brush, but it doesn't make any difference. Use whatever brush you have. So this time I'm going to go into my brown. And I'm going to start in the bottom corner here and just make that brownish. And I don't want to get this too dark because this is an overpowering color if it's too dark. But I want it just dark enough. I'm going to go right over this side over here. Isn't that a beautiful shade of brown? I love that. I want a little bit more here. We're going to do the pathway. And we're going to do just a little bit on the bottoms of these bushes here, because this part here would kind of be in shadow. Okay, and I also want to bring this brownish color up into these whiter trees just to give a little indication that those are kind of brownish. And you can go up into this a little bit with the brown here and there. That won't hurt anything. Just kind of give it more color, which we need color. Okay, now I'm liking that. That looks very good. And picking up my brush that had the yellow on it, I'm also going to add just a tiny bit of yellow here and there in this areas. That's kind of interesting. It just adds more color. The brush with the yellow on it, I want to go into just a tiny bit of green, and I'm going to just add some green to some of this yellow. Okay, this is looking really good now, but I want to be able to have this a little bit more highlighted in certain areas. So what you can do is just take a paper towel and just dab out some of the yellow, only where you want a highlight. It's like I want the light to be hitting right here. So you just keep wiping out a little bit. I'd also like a little bit down here. Just wipe it off. This is where you take a clean brush and go into your titanium white. Just load that brush. Now this is where we're going to make the sun rays. And I'll tell you, if you love this painting, your painting, not mine, but if you love your painting just the way it is, then just leave it. You don't have to put the sun rays in, but this is just another thing to do. So your lightest part, my lightest part, is probably right here. So I'm going to start crisscrossing. Let me put my palette down so I can hold this. There. And just keep crisscrossing out, 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 out. And see how that sunburst just comes alive? And just blend this in, go right over your tree, because usually when the sun comes through like that, you usually do see a blurring of the tree. Oh, I think that's so pretty. This is how you add the highlights. Let's say your sun would be striking over this way, okay? Just tap. A little bit of white, just tap and bring it out. How about one coming this way? You can do anything you want. Well, you might have one coming down here. And maybe a hair out this way. Isn't that neat? I think that is so pretty. Well, did you enjoy that little video? I thought it was a lot of fun. Anyway, I'm glad you joined me today, and be sure and tune in for next month when I'll bring you a brand new painting. Okay, bye-bye.